Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another powerful episode here at Prosperity is My Portion. I am your host, Kendrea Robinson. I'm an author, entrepreneur, and legacy strategist. And poverty ran in my family until it ran into me. Prosperity is My Portion is more than a podcast. It's a movement empowering individuals to break free from the chains of poverty and to build a life of generational prosperity. Each episode features inspiring stories, insights, and practical advice on overcoming financial struggles and achieving success. Again, hello to you in the audience, those of you listening. So glad to be back on another powerful episode. And this time, you guys, I have an amazing, incredible guest. Oh my goodness. We have been fighting tooth and nail to make this podcast happen, but we understand that this podcast is for someone. And as you see, this series that I have been talking about for a few episodes now, I have been unpacking healing and overcoming childhood trauma. In a few episodes, I have also shared my own personal story, my own personal journeys of healing and overcoming that childhood trauma. And I believe now more than ever, God wants his sons and daughters to be whole. So on this episode, I am going to get ready to introduce this amazing guest, this amazing woman of God. And before she gets ready to speak, I'm just going to share a little bit about who she is and how she serves. Kendrea Robinson is a married nurse practitioner who currently resides in Florence, South Carolina. Okay. She has one stepson. She is a visionary of Practical Purpose Solutions Medical Clinic, where their mission is to help individuals reset to refocus through various services such as nutrient hydration therapy, weight loss management, primary care, and more. She truly believes that every person needs a good reset at some point in their life. The wellness services and events that have been provided have been able to help individuals in the PD region enhance their wellness. She obtained her master's in nursing of science, She obtained her master's in nursing of science, nurse practitioner from South University, and certified life and health coach from the coaching institution. She is a member of the American Nurse Practitioners Association and American Nurse Association. Miss Robinson has worked as a registered nurse for 13 years and nurse practitioner for 5 years. She has a history of participating as a board member on various boards in Florence, South Carolina. In addition, she is also the visionary of Visionary Incubator Enterprises and consulting firm to help individuals grow in their businesses and purpose in life. Kendrea's model is that life is about impacting and helping others become the best version of themselves. Through this life journey, she has provided her expertise through various sources such as her book, Married to Self-Love, Keeping the Balance, serving in the community, helping women become better individuals through various programs, conferences, newspaper articles, online health blogs, teaching in person and virtual health seminars, as well as creating and hosting women empowerment events over the last 5 to 6 years, serving hundreds of women in the PD region across the state. You guys in the audience, give Miss Kendrea Robinson, a warm applause and welcome. Kendrea, how are you, dear? I'm so glad to have you on this podcast. Unmute your mic. I can't hear you.
Yeah, so I'm very excited about being here on today to talk about the issues and the solutions when it comes to trauma.
Absolutely. And so, Kendrea, when you think about healing and trauma, what's the first thing that comes to your mind? Or what would you like our listeners to gather today when they hear about healing and trauma? Or if you have a personal experience that you would like to share, and then also how can they overcome, or what does that look like for someone who's listening and they want that insight?
I first want to say that we all have our own traumas and that it is okay to feel your trauma and to go through your trauma. because a lot of times people don't want to go through the process after being traumatized or going through, certain traumas, but that we all go through our own traumas, and that at some point you will, if you're able to receive, you will be able to understand that the trauma was not meant to kill you, but it was actually meant to help you propel and, be able to help you get through some other things that God may send along that journey.
Absolutely. Talking about the trauma was not meant to kill you. Cause listen, I have some real life stories to where I felt like, honestly, you all, I felt like there were some things in my past, in my childhood, even in my young adulthood, going in after leaving adolescence, where I felt like I endured some things that I felt like was going to destroy me or going to, take me out. So, Kendrea, do you have any like personal experiences of you going through a situation where there was deep healing that was needed? And if so, how did you overcome that? What processes did God take you on that journey? I'm sorry, that probably was a long question.
So yes, I have, of course, I've been through a lot of different things in life. And the biggest thing that I got from that journey was that it taught me how to love me more. That process taught me how to stand on just being in business with God. It taught me, that things really and truly they don't come to make you weaker. They really come to make you stronger. And so in that and all the traumas that I have been through, I have realized that the things that I went through, I was able to apply, I was able to apply what I learned to the situations as I continue to maneuver through life. And I'm actually grateful because, a lot of people wouldn't be able to handle the loss of a child. A lot of people wouldn't be able to go through heartbreaks. I've seen people go through heartbreaks and literally act like they just can't depend or, survive on their own. And so just going through those different things that I went through throughout my life, it has definitely made me the woman I am today, where I can stand and be strong and I can talk about the faith of God. And I can actually be grateful that the stuff I went through, it didn't really take me out, because I could have been taken out. So, just the trauma that happened, I'm really just grateful for it, that I'm able to even dissect all that had happened. Because, sometimes we don't want to dissect what exactly happened and why it happened. And I find, a lot of times people love to take, put the blame at everybody else. But, we can't really blame everybody else in the situations. A lot of times we just have to take what God wants us to learn from it once we get through that process. Because at first you will blame others. At first you will try to, and it's not that people do it in a way to play victim intentionally. I think sometimes people don't want to acknowledge where, something went wrong, or, sometimes it just happens that way. But I'm just grateful that I'm able to talk about it now versus, not even mentioning it at all.
Wow. And Kendra, I think that is like a very pivotal moment when you're unpacking healing and trauma. Is one statement that you mentioned is that we don't really like to go back and deal with it. We don't want to unpack it, because in a lot of cases when you're dealing with broken hearts and dealing with grief and the trauma from it, it's almost, when we go back to unpack those layers, it's causing us to almost relive it again. And we're feeling that same heartache coming back again. We're feeling the same emotions that we felt, even if it doesn't matter if it happened last year, if it happened 5 years ago, 20 years ago. If you have buried it and it's time to unpack it, those same emotions can come back. You can literally feel the weight of your heart be heavy, the pressure of it, because you don't want to unpack it. And that is like a huge, that is a huge point. That's a huge part of healing. Is one that I have in the workbook coming out. The first part is acknowledgement, and the second part of that workbook, it goes into unpacking it, because we need to get a lot of it out. Also, something that you mentioned is you mentioned about the trauma. It wasn't meant to kill you, but you also said you learned how to love you more. Can you unpack that for just a minute? Explain to the listeners when you said what all I went through, the struggle I went through, the hell that I went through when I was about to lose my mind. When I went through that, it made me see the value in myself. It made me love me more. Can you unpack that for a moment?
Yeah. So, well, mine go all the way back to a kid. So when I was a kid, I used to have really bad eczema, and I know like now you see the kids, they have eczema, but I had it really bad. Like I had it on my face, you know, it was dried up skin everywhere. And I just was not secure with me. Like I would go around and I would not want to really talk to any guys. Like I was just not content with who I was. You know, my mom and my dad, like my family, everybody would just be like, "You're so pretty." Like everybody would try, you know, and I know they were coming from a genuine place now. But back then, I feel like people were just telling me that because of, you know, how my skin had looked. And so as I got older, I did not talk to men, like boys at all. I was just not into it. Like I was just like, I don't want no boyfriend. Like my parents were kind of strict as well, but I just didn't feel secure with me. I wasn't happy. And so when I went to school, college, I still had the same feeling. I was like, this is crazy how I'm this old and I still feeling insecure about me. I'm still feeling like I don't want to really talk to anybody. And we went to multiple doctors when I was a kid, and my mom is just like, nobody could really find what would be best for my skin. And once I got into a space where, you know, I was able to find some natural things myself as I got older, I began to realize, like, you know, it wasn't even about my looks or anything. It was just more that I realized, okay, people want to talk to me more. So I was more in a space of, okay, I'm going to find my husband, because when you grow up in a 2-parent home, sometimes you be around that sometimes, and you look at TV back then. I think a lot of us, and just being transparent, a lot of us actually looked at TV like, I want to have a family. Like I want to grow up in, you know, I want to have this statistic world that America says that it should be. And so while I was dating, you know, I was very vulnerable, just, you know, nice. And, you know, when guys would talk to me, I would be vulnerable and just be nice with them. Like, okay, this is going to be my husband because he's really cool. Da, da, da.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, right. So to move forward, like as I was going through the process, of course you had disappointments, and you went through the process of, you know, realizing that a lot of times people are just playing games.
Absolutely.
And when I got into my early 20s, I was like, hold on for a second. Like, nah, this is not whatever I was doing. I just knew it wasn't it. I was like, this is not it. I need to backtrack. I know how I was raised. You know, I know what I come from because I did come from a strong spiritual background. And when you're in those moments and you are around when you're in those moments and you're vulnerable and you're insecure with yourself, you get tied into a lot of different things in the world. You know, you get tied into, like, I would go out to the club, like I would have fun with my friends. Of course, there was, you know, just all kind of activities involved, not saying like sexual activities, but of course you get indulged in just so many different things.
Yeah.
And that stuff really could have took me out when I look back. Like, I could have been in car accidents. I could have been locked up. Like, I just could have been in so many different things. When I think about, you know, the goodness of God and all the stuff that I went through. But even though some people don't look at that as trauma, it is trauma, especially for me. So I was dealing with insecurity with myself. I was dealing with heartbreaks because people took my kindness for weakness. And then I was dealing with the fact that I'm living in a world that I know better of. So now I'm dealing in the spiritual realm, I'm dealing in the emotional realm, and I'm dealing in the mental realm. And so as I processed all that back then, you know, my career was like the thing that I felt like was my You know, as we go through trauma, we always have that one thing that will cover up everything else. So my career was that. I was like, my career good. I'm not worrying about, you know, somebody like me. I'm not worrying about the husband. I'm not worrying, you know, like I was just in my own little world. And that's when I began to find myself as I traveled, and I went to California and I started traveling different places, and I just lost weight because I was overweight. And I just began to realize, like, wait a second, I'm really not taking care of my body. I didn't realize how much stuff I was ingesting that was really killing me inside, you know. And as I went through that process, I ended up, I was in a space where I was not really caring about, dating. And, we all get those times like, I need a break. I don't want to. And I was in that space. And so I
Been
did,
there.
right. And I did find myself. But in that process, I had ended up pregnant and lost my baby. And even though I'm grateful that I'm not in a place where that losing a child, some people really take it hard. I'm grateful that a trauma didn't break me because I was able to still keep pushing, knowing that in that moment it wasn't what God wanted, because number one, I wasn't really even in alignment with him with it,
Wow.
And some people look at it as, oh my God, like it's trauma. But I look at it as that was God's way of letting me know, like,
Almost like his
you,
protection.
yes, like you went through this situation because of your bad choices that you wasn't in alignment. So when we think about trauma, sometimes we have to look at, and it's not all the time, just sometimes I always encourage people to look at trauma as, what is God saying in the message? Because sometimes, especially as adults, we go through things, and a lot of times we are placed in those things to see how we're going to handle them. How are we going to look at it? How are we going to point the finger? Or are we going to dissect it and say, you know what? I did do this out of marriage. I did, X, Y, and Z. I went somewhere where I know I shouldn't have been. And so now when I look at everything, I can actually say with confidence, like, I don't have to broadcast, oh, I love me, but I'm grateful that before I met my husband, I had built my boundaries off of, this is who I am. I don't have to portray anything. I don't have to make anybody love me. I don't have to keep calling somebody to see if they, running on me, like I can actually love me and be comfortable in the skin that I am, knowing that my worth is everything. And so that is how I got to where I am now when it comes to self-love. And now even my husband, he would tell anybody, like, she's going to work out, she's going to, because those are the things that make me content. And those are healthy things, those are healthy things. And we can rely so much on other people for our happiness. Even that, because a lot of people, like, when I lost my baby, people were just like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Like, I feel so bad, and I've seen people that went through that and they like immediately get pregnant. But I do thank God for my situation where he's taking me through a process of, I need you to process this. I need you to dissect this. I need you to understand what happened, because sometimes you can quickly have a baby after you do that, after that happens. But did we dissect the problem?
Exactly.
Because sometimes we just end up back in, and it doesn't have to be the baby situation, but it could just be a situation dealing with the other person or the spirit.
Yes, my goodness. Woo! Listen, you laid some gems in here today. One of the things, I was just jotting down some things, but before we end this podcast, you guys, thank you so much for tuning in and sticking around with us for a few minutes, sharing with us and myself and Kendrea and this healing. But one of the takeaways that I would like for you listeners to get is loving yourself, knowing who you are, whose you are, and your identity. And a lot of what you spoke about when it came to healing, Kendra, it was about your identity, knowing who you are and also getting that healing. But I also love the fact that even though you were grieving as a mother, you didn't deflect your hurt, your pain, your anguish, your disappointments onto others. You went back to God and say, wait a minute, let's dissect this thing. Let's look at it under a scope, God. Was I really ready? Was this really in alignment with your will? And even though, like you said, it could have been a hard pill for some others to swallow, but that's where you were in your relationship with God and saying, daughter, this looked it bad, but my perspective, from God's view, daughter, I was protecting you. And so I like that you said that we need to dissect it. And you said to not rely on others for happiness. And when we are broken, when we are wounded, when we are trauma babies, we get in relationships, trauma bonds. A lot of the times We are relying on others for our happiness. Kendrea, I just want to applaud you again for unpacking us and taking us down a journey from the beginning, how it all started, where the enemy was trying to creep in and start to lessen your worth, starting to devalue you. But God said, even though, and like myself, we got out there because we were blinded, we were naive, didn't know who we was, where we was going, what God placed on the inside of us. And the enemy said, oh, I got something. I see a crack. I see a crack in your spirit. I see a crack in your soul. I see a hole in your heart. I got something for that. And here we go. We get into the world. We get into a wrong relationship. We start clubbing and hanging out. And the enemy causing us to devalue ourselves even the more. So again, I am so grateful for you joining me for a few minutes and unpacking this healing and trauma. And you guys, I admonish you to listen. If there's some things that you have been trying to sweep under the rug, we have a testimony right here. Another walking, breathing, living testimony who has overcome battling identity crisis, overcome battling low self-esteem, overcoming even losing a child. Oh my goodness, Kendrea. I believe there's some more that we can share on this unpacking this healing, but we're going to end it right now. Kendrea, before we go, please let the listeners know where they can find you, if you have all of the Facebook shenanigans, and what do you have currently going on as you're in the community and all of the women empowerment and all of the great movements that you're doing. How can our listeners connect with you?
Yes, you guys can find me on Instagram at Kendrea FNP. There you will be able to see my business pages and links. And then also on Facebook, you can find me at Kendrea R FNP. You can also, if you would love to, you can catch our Ladies Night Out, which is going to be 9/19/2024. Just an evening to come out, relax, catch good energy, good vibes, very good dissect of dialect. Normally our events that we have in the office is just like amazing. So if you're free, come to Florence, South Carolina. The flyer will be on our virtual pages, and you will be able to find the event on Eventbrite as well, and it is $25.
Awesome.
We'll have massages there, and we'll have vendors.
Awesome. I might need that. What was it? The ladies' night out, the 9/19. Oh my goodness, that is amazing. Again, you guys, and I will have the links to all of Kendrea information, the event she currently has going on, and Kendrea is an author as well. So I will put all of her information into the description down below, and where you can find her in the Florence, South Carolina. Okay, putting Florence on a map. But you guys, thank you again so much for tuning in to another episode. And listen, you guys, if you have not already, please go ahead and join Prosperity is My Portion, a community that is dedicated to destroying the chains of poverty. I would love you to join and subscribe and become a part of a community. And together we can unlock generational prosperity that will evoke a life of wholeness, worth, and wealth. You guys have an amazing, amazing evening, and I will be right here next week with another episode. Grace and peace.